vibe. It is 96.3 Nation FM. Your voice, your vibe. I am Harry Araka.
Nyenduku Nyabuto, the Duchess of Busongo.
Gaza King.
Yes. And as we had promised you, we are coming back and we are here. We were to talk about mambo ya mento kidogo, sindio? And over the years, I have seen a lot more young people have these issues come to them. Kwa sababu kitambo, it used to be like, ni mambo ya wazee. Wazee ndo wanakuwa na shida kama hizo. Vitu kama stress, vitu kama disorders. That does not belong to young people. And now, it is even seeping into even younger generations. Sababu wanasema, mtoto wangu asikiangi kwa darasa. Mtoto mtundu. It's like playing around. You never know, maybe something else is going on. So today, we want to focus exactly on that. And in studio, we have, and I hope I get this right, we've got Mehreen Farrukh, who is a clinical psychologist at Aga Khan University Hospital. And she is here to help us. Did I get the name right?
You did, absolutely.
Makofi kwangu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It is a privilege to have you today. And we'd like just to start off by asking, why do we see these aspects of mental health affecting a very young populace? Why do we see it in children?
Basically, it's become rampant in children more so, especially in urbanized areas.
Yes.
Because there are basically a number of factors. For instance, we have a lot of working parents.
Working parents.
The economy, everything is expensive. Parents are working. Children apparently are left on their own. Then, of course, we have technology integrated communities.
Okay.
By that, I mean we have this huge element of technology where we leave our kids with screens, and that is one of the main reasons actually in some of the researches that have actually precipitated mental health.
Like Cocomelon babies, iPad babies. Not really.
Not exactly Cocomelon, but even some of the apps, some of the innocent games, just the amount, the time of exposure. For instance, by research, it's 5 to 7 hours in Kenya.
Okay.
And this is particularly 5 to 7 hours of phone use. And this, of course, has integrated dopamine addiction and less sunlight. Kids are more indoors, less interactions. And then it's like a snowball effect, which is now, yes, affecting our children more so than anything else.
In your line of work, what mostly affects children when it comes to these, should I call them disorders, mental disorders? Is that the right term to use?
So usually with children, it starts off as somatic symptoms. When we have children, now what are children? Children is anything before adolescent. Usually that would be about, for us, we deal with cases from 4 to all the way up to 11 until they hit puberty.
Okay.
So what happens with the children is that they show somatic symptoms. Somatic symptoms are not full-blown mental disorders.
Okay.
These are now stomach aches, headaches, nausea. That is how dizziness, that's how it starts off.
Okay.
And then now it precipitates to affective disorders. Affective disorders are now mood disorders, and then we have conduct disorders. So it doesn't just start full-blown.
Full-blown. But majorly, in your area of expertise, yeah, can you give us like specific examples or the disorders that affect majority of the children, the most cases you've seen? What are these disorders and what may lead to them?
So if I was to take like a statistic, really, so the number one at the moment would be depression.
Depression.
Yes. Number one in children is depression, and then we have a lot of, I would say, conduct in terms of now symptoms of ADHD. But the beauty is that it's reversible. That's why early intervention, early diagnosis, psychoeducation is key.
So what should a parent watch out for? Like you've said, behavioral changes or something. What primarily? Are there like telltale signs? Like maybe my child might not be okay.
Usually the classic sign for children would be a lot of abdominal issues. It would come across as pain in the stomach, and then it moves on to. As a parent, you would notice sleep disturbances. There's social isolation as well. There's denial of food as well. And sometimes there is a preoccupation with a certain activity. For instance, if you're seeing your child just doing one thing all the time,
Repeatedly,
yeah, repeatedly is also a red flag. But just to keep it simple,
Yes.
sleep pattern, eat pattern, and interactive
Social, okay.
Social
So
aspect.
sleeping,
Yes.
eating, and socializing.
Absolutely.
Those are it's like a trident
I
of
agree,
things
yes.
you can look out for, right? This is very interesting because for most parents, they'll be like, is it a colic? Are you just perturbing us? Do you not want to sleep? Do you not want to socialize? You talked about technology being a huge part of what affects children. Are there any other things that might be factors in which a child can fall into this pitfall of like a mental disorder?
Usually, the number one, which is very high, is now marital discord.
Okay.
That has been known to distress children. Marital discord would mean, of course, now we have a separation or a divorce or constant fights at home.
Okay.
Another interesting element that has come out is the mother's affect. Now, what is the mother's affect? So a mother's well-being, or how happy the mother is very directly proportional to the well-being of the children.
Okay.
And now this is by research. Of course, there are other elements as to now what happens if they're single fathers. Now that's a totally that's a story for another day.
Okay.
But so number one would be marital discord. Then we have a mother's affect. That goes on now to exposure to trauma, which would be domestic violence, abuse by a child, early experiences that might be detrimental to the mental health. We also notice financial constraints can also really increase cortisol in children, where, they're watching their parents strive and then there's no food and everything is so expensive. That tends to stress children as well.
What is cortisol?
Stress hormone.
And
Harry.
No,
We've
just
had this
asking.
word so many times
No,
on this show.
You see,
Huh?
I am asking for that person who does not know what
Oh,
cortisol
I thought
is.
you didn't know. I wanted to shine.
Really?
I've had my moment now. Proceed, Dr. Harry.
no, but that's actually true. So cortisol basically is it's released when the body is stressed.
Stressed, okay.
Now this is not always bad. Sometimes you need that amount of cortisol to get somewhere on time.
Yes.
Like I'm sure I had some in the elevator because we didn't know what the floor was. So that was good cortisol. And
Yes.
then we have some to study for exams, but now there is excess and continuous.
Oh, yes.
For instance, we would see that in children exposed to wars. So continuous stress for children would definitely increase the cortisol level. That would now be a precipitating factor
Okay.
to childhood anxiety, depression, and stuff like that.
In our society and society at large, we kind of treat boys and girls a bit different, right? For like when you have a child, they want to grab onto things. When you give them your finger, for boys, people like to pull it, see how strong it is, but it doesn't cut across the board. Is there a difference, or do you see any differences when it comes to the mental state and position of these children when it comes to gender, like boys and girls? Are there any differences?
So when it comes to what may cause mental disorders or mental health issues in
Yes.
boys and girls would be the same, like the ones that we've discussed: marital issues, trauma,
Financial constraints,
etc. etc.
Yes.
However, the way it is manifested is different. For boys, they tend to externalize it, which
Okay.
would come across as conduct issues. Now, conduct issues would be anger, rage, aggression. Girls, however, would internalize it, and that would come across as food disorders, body image issues, we have depression as well, anxiety. So to keep it short, we'd say boys would externalize it and girls would internalize it in terms of manifestation.
Okay. So wale walikuwa na kubuli in class 4, maybe there was something going on. So technology and this other it actually gives a really new angle into happy wife, happy life.
Okay.
When the mother is around and things are well, it might be it may bode better for the child, yeah?
And this is by research.
And this is by research. We're not just pulling this out of our armpits, yeah?
Yeah, so basically a balanced home is essential in the growth of a child, in the well-being of their mental state.
Yes.
There has been an increase in kids that are not verbal over time, and you have said a lot of people say it's because of screen time and other things, but is there something else that is causing this? I don't know. There's a condition they call it. I'm not sure what it is. But a lot of kids are not verbal. They're not interactive. I've heard you talk about that. They're not interactive. They're not verbal.
Emotions.
They have bouts of anger and crying. And I've seen this. And I would like to know, is it something that comes from how we raise them? Or is it also genetic? Could it be, something they picked up from a parent? Or it's just how we are raising them now?
Of course, genetics is something that we don't eradicate. We have now the biopsychosocial, and then now we added spirituality to it. So biology is always, psychology is a scientific subject. So genes is something that actually even in our clinical interview, we would always ask for, is there any mental illness or mental disorder in the family? To ask about your... you mentioned that some of the kids aren't talking,
Yes.
and or we would say it could be, let's say if there's a child who isn't talking, there could be a delayed milestone. It could be for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's malnutrition. Sometimes maybe the child is left alone in the house a lot. So that would be delayed milestones. So we wait and watch.
Okay.
Sometimes they may be on the spectrum of autism. And then, of course, now we have selective mutism, which is where they would completely refuse to talk, let's say, in a particular environment, for instance, in school, but they would be very vocal at home.
At home.
So we usually wait and watch before we make the diagnosis, because with children it can be very technical, and there has to be a specialist.
Because I feel like most of the time autism is thrown around a lot, First, just kidogo observation and someone has decided this child is autistic, is on the spectrum, and they get on those serious therapies. It's speech therapy, it's occupational therapy, it's a lot of things, and they're very expensive. I don't know if that is the case, but I am told they're really expensive. And like you've said, genetics also play a role. So it is just a combination of so many things that lead to this one thing. And it's important that we're having this conversation now, because a lot of parents have kids they cannot explain, what exactly is going on with them. And there has been a surge in the number of kids that are having these problems in this generation. Is it that the number has gone up, or is it that we did not, have the correct diagnosis for it earlier on, Kitambo? Because the cases seem to be going higher and higher over time.
And to add to that, before you answer, I'll go to the basics. What is autism?
So autism is basically, autism is a spectrum. It's a childhood disorder which would have a certain number of, like for a child to fit the diagnosis, there has to be now a criteria.
Yes.
For instance, now, and this, like I would use the DSM-5. This would basically give you now the duration of how long the symptoms, which would be now the onset of symptoms.
Yes.
The duration of the symptoms. For instance, if you're telling me that there is a kid who's showing symptoms of autism. Now, autism is, some of the symptoms would be, clinging more towards a routine, not being able to make eye contact, being very not liking loud noises. And then, of course, they like to, there's certain behavioral elements like arranging things. But, if you would tell me that a child as young as 1 or 16 months is doing this, we would, so there is onset of the symptoms, but it's also age specific. A child has to be older than a certain age for us to be able to make that diagnosis.
Okay.
So that is, and of course there are assessments involved. There's specialists involved for us to be able to first diagnose. And then now there's an entire treatment plan. There's family therapy as well. Obviously, if there's a child that's autistic, we need to involve the family as well. And then we have lifestyle intervention therapies where we need to talk about how we can, because autism the child is living with autism throughout. This child will not be less autistic or more autistic. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
So that is autism, right?
Oh.
And there is ADD.
ADHD.
Attention deficit
disorder.
Attention deficit disorder.
That is a disorder, right?
Yes.
That is a childhood disorder.
And
yes, of course, it's in adult as well. We
Okay.
have adult ADD, ADHD as well. Yes.
So how would you know that these are symptoms of ADD and ADHD?
So what is ADD? ADD is attention deficit disorder.
Yes.
And then we have ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Okay.
If I was to say, so you're asking about the diagnosis.
Yes.
Now, of course, there's certain assessments that psychologists do, which is specifically these are psychometric assessments now, which would be written. Some of them are even online. And these are also done by specialists for us to score them, assess them, and then give a diagnosis.
Okay.
I have a question. Is
Go
the
ahead.
birth process a part of it? Because I know a parent who went for an assessment and was asked to describe the birth process of that child to a T. Is it important for diagnosis of what exactly is going on with the child?
I would believe so, because if we're going as back as now, if there is any history of mental illness, a lot of the psychologists would take into account now what is happening at birth to sort of predict if there was any trauma at birth. Some of them even ask the mothers how the pregnancy was like. So it really depends on the type of modality that you're using. Some are solution focused.
Yes.
They don't want to know what's happening in your past. We just hit the bullseye and we move on from here and then onwards.
Okay. In most disenfranchised places, like our informal settlement places or in rural areas, this is not seen as a priority. How can wale ambao wako mashinani and those who are in formal places, how can they be better incorporated? How can they be better made knowledgeable of this?
So basically what's happened in the past, I think the approach has been, there have been gaps in the approach in terms of including the rural population. So there's a term which is what now we're doing as psychologists and researchers is participatory research. Participatory research is basically, or PAR is, it's basically something that we're doing in terms of involving communities and people from the community. Because imagine if there's someone that's coming to your village, a complete outsider, telling you that this is something that you're supposed to do with these members of community. It's already a foreign idea. So this kind of the participatory action research basically actively includes members of the community at every stage of the research. From identifying the problem to the sampling to the research to the data collection. So basically what I'm trying to say is that you need to make the research, the psychoeducation, make it look like it's theirs and not so foreign. Because mental health in itself is such a heavy, sometimes even stigmatized, most of the times stigmatized in these communities, and then you have an outsider telling you what to do. It can be very overwhelming. And it's also not worked. So the idea is now to include members of the community that will be involved in the process for maximum results, to maximize results.
It's sort of like public participation or something?
Yeah, actually, yes, you can say that.
Yeah, I can say that.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk about stigma. We have a couple of families and instances where people who have like mental health disorders, be it the kids, be it the teenagers, be it adults, they get shunned. And some might even be, what do you call it? Like locked up somewhere. How do we go about this? And primarily, what leads, according to you, what leads to most people not going to seek help and rather resort to this?
So it really depends on, like, let's say if, first of all, if there is a child that needs a mental health intervention,
Yes.
and they're being locked up, as much as it may come from lack of awareness, but that's actually considered as neglect and abuse.
That is neglect and abuse,
Yes, and that immediately becomes a child protection case, and that's actually taken very seriously in our country as well.
Yes.
We have child protection officers and hotlines where these kids are actually evacuated, protected, counseled, and rehabilitated. So
Okay.
sometimes we don't. I think parents. Sometimes we don't understand the consequences of putting children away and then locking them up. Of course, there is the first step, which is the primary intervention, where before it happens, we protect it. So we psychoeducate, and that's why we're here today.
Yes.
But of course, if you're still doing something to a child, that would still be considered as a child protection case.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are hotlines, and in case you see, well, they say, in case you see something or hear something, say something, right? And that will be able to help a lot of people get to out of that calamity that they are in. Is there a grace period in which ikipita, it might be far too gone for the child or the teenager or the person?
Far too gone in terms of.
In terms of not getting the necessary help and it becoming something that is maybe lifelong.
Of course, that. So you see, the main idea is, if I was to sort of sum this in a sentence as to why we're doing it, early intervention, early diagnosis, and early intervention.
Yes.
Early diagnosis is basically finding out when it's early enough. Intervention is treatment, putting in the treatment for us to be able to reverse a child who may be predisposed, that is biologically wired for a very big disorder, and
Yes.
we can actually reverse it. Yeah, that's why working with children is extremely crucial.
Okay. So I have a statistic here, and I'll read it out for you, and then you tell me what you think about it, and then we can work our way from there. So research in Nairobi and Mombasa, that is from 2022, it shows that depression is higher among off-school adolescents, that is like 36%, right, than those in school, right? 20.6%, meaning school-going kids have a lower percentage in regards to their counterparts who do not go to school. Why does being out of school become a trigger for mental health issues?
I think I've come across that research. So you said in the year 2022.
2022. It's a bit dated, but
No,
it's recent
fine.
enough.
Actually, it's very good that you brought it up. So what that would the research, I think, was done post-COVID, when we had mental health just spiking in children.
Yes.
So this research was done when some schools were shut, some schools were open, some schools completely shut down,
Yes,
as in
yes.
went out of business. So that is when the research was done. So of course that would pretty much talk about the element of what COVID did when the kids were at home. It was detrimental
Okay.
to our children.
Yes.
Now, if we were to look at the flip side, that of course what you're saying is that school-going children are happier as opposed to children who are at home.
Yes.
So there's a whole lot of hidden factors to it. Why is the child at home?
Yes.
Could be financial constraints. Why is the child at home? Maybe there's an element of child labor. So that is now bringing in a lot of other layers as well.
Yes.
when we have children who are going to school, of course, they're more active.
Yes.
There's more dopamine.
meet
They're
other kids.
exercising. They're interacting. And then they have that sense of belonging and support. So a lot of elements there. But with regards to that, if we look at it both ways, of course, COVID was detrimental when the kids were out of school.
Yeah, cooked indoors.
Yeah, and that is where the technology integrated communities came in. You see, that is when it sprouted. And then if we look at it, not so much COVID related in 2025, there's a definite financial element to it. Especially in Kenya, if you have a child that's not going to school, that's a red flag right there.
Yes. Okay. So initially, you had talked about interventions, and one of which is spiritual intervention. What are your thoughts about that? And how can someone not take this out of context and say, well, since you said spiritual intervention, I will not take my child to the doctor. I'll just take them to the pastor or to the imam or whoever it is for them to be prayed for, and they shall be okay. What is spiritual intervention? And do you think it is successful enough to apply?
So you see what has happened now. Of course, as specialists and as a psychologist, I would talk scientifically.
Yes.
So we had initially there was a model that we use, which is the biopsychosocial model.
Okay.
Biology, psychology, society, and now we've added spirituality.
Okay.
So that is an element which we, if by model and research, cannot completely avoid. That is something that we do take into consideration. For instance, we look at the biology side of it, and if there are elements where we do have clients that may say generally, we have this, we're doing this, we wake up in the morning and we pray. Those actually become protective factors. So we have precipitating factors, which would be, trauma, stress, work, and then we have protective factors. So that would fall under a protective factor, actually. Yes.
Well, they say prevention is better than cure, and I do not want to be misquoted by this. And but most young people who are getting married, sometimes they're told, look at your partner, because sometimes these things can be passed down from generation to generation. How true is that? And what would you advise a young couple who are thinking about having kids, who are coming into this world that is more and more technology driven?
So you see, first we have to define what young is.
Yes.
So when for us, from the generation that I'm from,
Yes.
a young would be, maybe like 16, 18. Now young is, it's completely different. Maybe young would be as early as 35, 36, sometimes even 40 is young.
Yes.
I'd like to think I'm young. So it really depends on that. But yes, if there's a couple that wants to have children, I think it's as mental health workers, we wouldn't scare them by saying, why would you want to have kids in this world? So that is something that we don't advise. Let's say if I was to do maybe a couple session, that is, first of all, we don't advise in sessions at all. But I still hope that I believe the world still has hope for more kids. Yeah, but I'd still like to know what you think young is. I'm very curious.
Oh, okay. Maybe young is not the word I should have used. Maybe a couple that is looking forward to having kids. Because you're told, like, when you get married, your parents have sat you down. You're like, look at the family history of these people. Maybe do they have these mental conditions that run in the family? So that's really what I wanted to know about when maybe you're choosing a partner. Because this is a lifelong commitment. And I wanted to know, if this is something that should be looked at when you're looking for maybe a partner or you're about to have kids. Is this an aspect you should look at, or is it something that can be overlooked because we have mitigating and mitigating and interventions that come afterwards that can help these kids?
So of course what you're talking about is a very modern intervention. Now we're involving genetic testing. It's something that's done. Of course, sometimes we can even modulate the color of the eyes, the weight of the child. So it's really specialized, definitely also very expensive. Are we there yet? Perhaps
Not
no.
quite.
But the fact that we know about this is a beginning as well.
So, back in school, we used to have people who would do certain things. Like they would cut themselves, they would do all these sorts of self-harm. This is a factor that comes out from their mental state. How would you proceed when it comes to people who do self-harm to themselves? How do you get them close? How do you make them feel part of the family or something? Or how do you help them jump over that hurdle?
So self-harm, of course, is very predominant in teenagers.
Yes.
Now, self-harm is a coping mechanism. Let's understand the science behind self-harm. Now, what happens with self-harm is that the moment you harm yourself, either by cutting, burning, there are researches that are saying that maybe hitting, punching the wall is also part of any form of infliction of harm that you do to yourself. Actually releases endorphins, and that is where the addiction comes in.
Oh, okay.
Endorphins are happy hormones, happy chemicals. So the moment you're distressed, endorphins are low. You cut yourself, endorphins are released, which is like a natural painkiller, almost as if you're taking a Panadol. That is why it's addictive, and there's a whole science behind it. So the idea is now for us to, I would approach, like you can't expect a child to immediately stop self-harming the next day. They know it's a poor coping mechanism. They don't know the science behind it. So we try and do harm reduction.
Okay.
Of course, we look into what's causing it. There has to be some distress. Usually it's comorbid with other disorders like depression and anxiety.
Okay.
And then now we substitute it with a healthy coping mechanism, which
Okay.
is producing an equal amount or even more endorphins and happy hormones.
Okay. So you said it becomes an addiction?
Of course, when you have a child that is not producing enough endorphins, and then it's led to self-harm, and all of a sudden there's this sense of release, and they're feeling better. A child doesn't know that. All they know is when I do this, I feel good.
Okay.
So there's a reason why they do it. They do this because there's certain chemicals that are released that is giving them some form of relief, and that is why they keep doing it. And more so when they're anxious, during exams, sometimes during separation, divorce. Sometimes it would even happen when there's neglect, financial issues. The causes could be many.
And can this down the line lead to the person substituting the pain for maybe substances?
Yes, it's like I said, it's very hand in hand in terms of when usually self-harm doesn't come in isolation. It comes with either substance use disorder, we have depression, we have anxiety, sometimes also with learning disabilities when the child is completely overwhelmed, it's not diagnosed. Sometimes it's also with body dysmorphic issues, body image issues. Self-harm in itself is a coping mechanism to an already existing mental disorder or mental health issue.
Maureen asks, TikTok has made my attention deficit worse. Is that true or false? Maureen, what are you asking? Oh, I think I know what she means, right? It's like short format clips, right? Nowadays have made people's attention span become very short. Which is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? And is it going to be affecting them in the long run?
So you see, it really depends. Everything is a good thing, and then everything becomes a bad thing if we overdo it.
Yes.
Now, like I said, we need to, when we're psychoeducating,
Yes.
we need to put the scientific aspect to it. Why is everyone now on iPhones? Why are we using it? So there's something that we call the reward circuit activation. Now, what happens with so that is that, and then there is the reward circuit over activation, which is when we are using our TikToks and videos, there is a certain level of dopamine, and there's a dopamine surge. Now, I know you're going to ask me what the dopamine would be. Now, a dopamine is a chemical. It's a neurotransmitter, which is released in the body when we're holding our phones, playing games, screen usage. Now, what that happens is that by research, to our friend here who's asking us the question,
Yes.
is very closely linked to overactivating brain regions that would be responsible for impulsivity. So if this is an individual who's already diagnosed with ADHD, as she's mentioning,
Yes.
there is a definite correlation with more circuit activation, overstimulation, and impulsive behavior.
Victor is asking, does eating vienyeji vegetables help my mental health?
Does eating what vegetables?
Vienyeji. You don't know vienyeji?
I don't know. You will have to.
Those are
tell me.
traditional like herbs, like instead of kale, something like managu, you know.
That is an excellent question.
Uh-huh.
So what we're currently doing now is you are what you eat. You know the way we say you are what you think,
Yes.
but you are also what you eat.
What you eat, yeah?
So what we're doing now as psychologists is that we are actually collaborating with dietitians and nutritionists for us to be able to have a holistic approach to a holistic intervention. So there are times where we do collaborate, and I would tell them, you know, why don't you add more banana? That's more potassium. It is very closely related to, you know, it's like a depression buster, or it would somehow work with moods. Like, for instance, if there's a kid with ADHD and you're
Yes.
giving them chocolates every day, that's not going to work well. Yes.
Okay.
So eating vegetables, to rephrase that question, eating healthy would definitely have a good impact on the mental
Okay.
health.
One last question because the other ones are crazy. Victor Caleb is asking, I used to come in number last every single day in school. Do I have a mental disorder?
He used to come last in terms
Yes.
of
Oh, school.
academic.
I think it's academic.
Academic
school
performance.
performances, yeah.
That is now you see, if you're coming last, it could be so many things. Maybe you don't like school, number one.
Uh-huh.
Number two, maybe you have, if you're a backbencher, maybe you have a weak eyesight. Number three, of course, we do have reading and writing disabilities that may be causing, a decline
Performance
in academics.
issues, yeah?
But yes, another thing which would maybe indicate is a huge, rampant decline in academics. We have a child who's been getting B's, A's, and all of a sudden is failing. That's a red flag.
Okay. Mehreen Farrukh, clinical psychologist at Aga Khan University Hospital, has been with us today. Very insightful. How can you be found? Where can you be found on your socials? In case people want to locate you.
So on my socials, I think maybe if you can, you can type my name. But in terms of my physical,
Yes.
so I'm based at the Aga Khan University Hospital. Currently, I'm at their outreach clinic. For now, I'm at the Piponi Executive Clinic in Westlands. Of course, I'm there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I do a lot of self-care on Fridays. I'm not there on Fridays. And then we have Saturday. But the clinic runs through Monday to Saturday, including Fridays.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
We can't wait to have you again here. And hopefully next time we'll have better statistics for a healthier country, yeah?
Yes. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're getting there.
We're getting there?
Yes.
We're getting there. Light is at the end of the tunnel, yes? Absolutely.